Many WNBA fans are still recovering from WNBA All-Star Weekend, but preparing for the Team USA men's and women's teams to take the court in the Olympics. But on today's episode, we're going to talk about how Angel Reese continues to deal with the hate thrown her way. She's also listed as one of the top 25 future stars by ESPN, but predicted to lose the Rookie of the Year race to Caitlin Clark. We're going to talk about that. Plus, the Sky getting close to announcing their new practice facility, all that, plus the WNBA extending to 44 games, all that and more right after this.
Welcome to Chicago Sky Central, and here's your host, Haize.
What's going on, Sky fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Sky Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Sky and WNBA related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chicago Sky Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. That being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And y'all thought we was going to leave y'all until the Olympics start without a dope pod to step to? The content don't stop just because the WNBA stopped around here, especially as we got news that continually comes out about our Chicago Sky team. We're going to start off this talking about Angel Reese, right? I've wanted to let the room breathe a little bit after Angel Reese's All-Star performance, in which she did become the first rookie to have a double-double in an All-Star game. After some, it's always funny to me, and I try not to really throw a lot of conspiracy theories out. If you guys have been following the show, you know I don't like being narrative-driven. I don't like things that are driven by narrative. I like the facts. I like to break down numbers. I feel like there's so much just realistic numbers and analytics that you can go to when you talk about sports that you don't have to necessarily always focus on narrative. But it just seems like it is always some type of narrative around Angel Reese whenever she gets an accolade, right? The double-double streak, people want to focus on, she gets most of her own misses, which that isn't the case. Not even a third of her rebounds come from her own misses. That she's stat padding. Come the fuck on with that bullshit. And then now she actually breaks a record in an All-Star game, and most of that night, it's stupid people tweeting out, oh no, Yolanda Griffin did it in 99, and then not even looking at it. Yolanda Griffin was an All-Star in 99, but she didn't get her first double-double in an All-Star game into the year 2000. It was a simple search to look at it and say, oh no, it's tripping. I don't care who tweeted what out or who said what on air. It's a very simple thing to go out and look this and research it. But of course, people, because they're so quick and want any type of narrative that they can use to throw on Angel Reese's accomplishments, people spent legitimately that whole night, even into the next day, regurgitating something that was just incorrect. It literally took me 2 minutes to look and double check and say, oh no, that's incorrect. Now, a lot of the cowards in the comment section of this video who said that and tried to push that narrative ended up deleting those comments, because I was best believe it was going to be another Petty Roosevelt episode, but luckily, cooler heads prevailed. It is what it is. We're on the right side of it, and that's just is what it comes down to. But I want to talk a lot about Angel Reese, right? And Angel Reese has just continually dealt with the things that have been thrown and lobbied towards her with the most grace possible in a lot of ways. Does she say everything perfectly? No, she doesn't have to. And that is why you see some of the doubt and hate thrown towards Angel Reese, is because in a time period where a lot of people knew it would be easier for her to just kind of be somebody different and say the right things, try to be the media darling. And Angel Reese is still that in a lot of ways, but she continues to just be herself. And that's the thing that I love most about Angel Reese. As somebody who is now representing the city of Chicago, one of the most, again, a lot of narrative get thrown on the city of Chicago, calling the city of Chicago crazy and all this. One of the worst cities. Like, Chicago is beautiful. Nobody talks about the theater. Nobody talks about the restaurants. Nobody talks about all the amazing things that are in the city of Chicago. When you hear Chicago talked about in the media, it's mainly just bull crap that's thrown towards the city of Chicago. And so, I'm glad that Angel Reese in a lot of ways kind of brings all that together, right? It's just, she really does represent the city. And I'm glad that she's loved the city as much as she is, because we embrace her. And so despite everything, the fact that Angel has continued to be her, she hasn't shied away from the media, which is something that a lot of people could do in a situation like this, when everything that you say is kind of taken and misaligned and used differently for different narratives. Somebody could get quiet, right? And things like that. But Angel Reese continues to just be her, continues to just be Angel, and to allow her game to speak for itself and to embrace her own personality. And that's the thing that's going to take Angel Reese far, right? And so that's something I just love to see from Angel Reese as somebody who, like I said, I didn't come to the Chicago Sky to be a fan here because of Angel Reese. I was a fan of the Chicago Sky before Angel Reese, for a decade before Angel Reese hell, she was a teenager at the point where I started rooting for the Chicago Sky. So, like, to see Angel be who Angel is and continue to embrace that, and that to get her far is just something that I feel is so special, and something that I just embrace so much from Angel Reese, because it's really just, it's great. And I think people, whether they right or wrong, and this is me getting on my deep shit again, people don't like women embracing who they are, right? You see that all throughout the media, but much more so when it's a black woman on top of that, being exactly who she is. Like, now we're trying to change the nature of competition. People get mad and call her a bad sport because she talks shit on the court. Fuck you. Like, really, when it's all just said and done, fuck you. Like, it's just, if you are in your feelings because a 22-year-old woman is living her best life, and even the people who sit there and say things like, oh, she's wearing eyelashes on the court, and why she's doing that, and oh my gosh, shut the absolute fuck up. So, I love when the fact that somebody who could be given the label of a bad attitude or whatever just keeps being herself, because that's what got her here, and that's what's going to keep taking her far. Now, outside of that, right, I don't want to get on narrative. We're going to move on from that. Let the haters hate, right? But another thing when it comes down to it as well is that Angel Reese was listed as one of the top 25 future stars in an article by ESPN. They listed her accomplishments of being the 2023-24 SEC Player of the Year, 2024 All-Star, the fact that she holds the WNBA single season records with 15 straight double-doubles. She's looking to be the first rookie since 2010 to lead the WNBA in rebounds. Like, the thing that she's doing, she is one of the faces of women's basketball. Now, there are people that should be, and Caitlin Clark is one of those. Asia Wilson is one of those. Sabrina Ionescu is one of those. Sue Bird, the legends, Diana Taurasi, those are always going to be women as well as that. But when you're looking as far as going into the next phase of what women's sports is and women's basketball, you can't deny that Angel Reese, regardless of what you want to say, how much you want to hate, she's one of those women, and she deserves to be that. And so I'm glad that the ESPN, as much as some of this, we're going to talk about another ESPN article where they weren't as necessarily as favorable to our Barbie, and that's fine. Just noticed her and labeled her as one of those top 25 stars in the future of sports, and not just women's sports. That's huge to say, in my opinion. And as the WNBA is growing through exponential growth, she definitely is somebody who is a part of that, as is most of the league. It's not just because of Caitlin Clark, despite what some people would have you believe. Now, with that said, I said we was going to get into the negatives, right? Or not negative, but just a different thing. ESPN released 10 predictions for the rest of the 2024 season after the All-Star break. And so one of those, of course, involved our Chicago Sky, and it was this. Caitlin Clark will win Rookie of the Year race that goes to the wire with Angel Reese. And they mentioned it as far as the race being challenging to compare them because they play very different styles. Just honestly, even in them coming to the conclusion that Caitlin Clark will win it, I'm not mad at that. That is what it is. It's how people talk about it. And they gave Angel Reese her flowers and her just doing this, saying that, when guards, particularly point guards, have been undervalued in the WNBA, to see somebody like Caitlin Clark come along, it's going to get it. And, they even talked about Angel Reese's consistent production, her physical play in the paint, and that's just not something that right now a lot of people, unless you're rooting for that person, necessarily always gravitate towards. So, I'm not weighing in on my thought process on the Rookie of the Year debate until we probably get a week or two back into the return, because I want to see how things are going to work out. I want to see how the changes to the Chicago Sky ultimately change as well Angel Reese's role. Can they get the ball to Angel and Camila Cardoso more consistently, right? But overall, this is going to be a race between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. And I will not be surprised at all if the WNBA does something unprecedented for them and has co-Rookie of the Year. So, there are enough conversations to be made about Caitlin Clark. There are enough conversations to be made about Angel Reese, not comparing the two or getting into the hate between the fan bases, just as players, to have that conversation about who should be Rookie of the Year. And, it is what it is. I try to be fair. I try to be objective. Of course, I would love to see Angel Reese outright win the Rookie of the Year. That's just me selfishly, because she is our Barbie, the Chi-Town Barbie. But overall, when it comes down to it, I do think that it is going to come down to the wire between those two ladies and how they come back out of this Olympic and All-Star break over the last month or half of the season leading into a playoff run. It's going to be important to see, man, how. And keep in mind, the Rookie of the Year race is not based off the postseason. So it doesn't matter what teams do what in the postseason. It's about the regular season. And let's see how Angel Reese, the Chicago Sky, and overall come back out and attack the rest of the season. Now, I know Steve-O released a news update right after this was released, but I want to talk about it a little bit here. The Chicago Sky have basically soft announced that they're getting ready to announce a practice facility. Seems like they may be taking over the Wintrust Sports Complex in Bedford Park near the Midway Airport. Now, there is some questions on if they're going to be leasing it or if they're going to buy it outright. I hope for one that they buy it. Now, even if they lease it, if they have full control over the building and it's not something that anybody else can come in and rent anything out, that the Sky have full control over it, that's a step in the right direction. It's a 120,000 square foot center right now that's owned by Bedford Park. It opened up in fall 2021, and it cost $38 million to open then. So it's only a 3-year, about 4 or 5-year-old building by the time we get it open. So if the Sky do move forward with that location, it's not like they're getting something that's condemned or completely out of state or anything like that. They will be investing quite a bit of money to get it up to the standards, especially if they wanted to compare to the Mercury and what their practice facility is for sure. But overall, yes, we would love for the Sky to have a complex that was specifically designed for them. But this building, when you look at it, it is one that could offer a lot, and there's more than enough space to do whatever the Chicago Sky need within it. So I'm not going to be one that knocks them if they do decide to renovate that building. It is what it is. So let's hope that ends up being the case, man. It would be only 11 miles away from the Wintrust Arena as well, so that's really good. Reportedly, Jeff Pagliosha told the Chicago Sun-Times at the beginning of July that he expected the Sky to have a new facility by the beginning of next season. So, so getting a building that is kind of, like I said, only 3 years old, to really be able to get in there and revamp that, they would have to get work quick. But it is very possible that that building could be done before the start of next season. They'll just have to really get to work on it. So we'll see how that goes. Overall, I'm glad that the Sky are moving forward with trying to get that done. And then let's see what comes about from that. Before we go, though, I got one news from around the W that I want to get into, and that is Kathy Engelbert has talked a little bit about the Chicago Sky, the WNBA potentially going to a 44-game schedule. Now, this is not something that I'm surprised by. I think when you're adding 2 teams, right, they're adding one next year, and then the season after that, they're adding another one. So I think that going to 44 games is something that kind of makes sense. I honestly think that a perfect kind of a number of games for the WNBA would probably be about 50 games, right? I think that's kind of when you add, if you get up to 20 teams, which I do think is probably going to be the goal within the next decade, is getting to 20 teams. I think that 50-game mark is a good one, but she says this. We're looking at the footprint next year. We don't have an international competition like the FIBA World Cup or Olympics next year, so we'll be able to look at our footprint without any interruption or break like we're breaking this year. And so the current collective bargaining agreement does cap the potential season at 44 games. That's why the conversation right now is at 44. But they are renegotiating the CBA at the end of the 2025 season, so that could become something that they renegotiate on the table as well. But getting to that 44-game mark as soon as next season, with the Golden State team coming in 2025 and then the Toronto team coming in 2026, it would make sense to increase that number of games, just 4 games overall for the WNBA. So just something to keep a lookout for. I think it makes most sense. I would not be surprised if by the end of this decade, so getting into 2030, that we get closer and closer to 50 games. They could increase that. Of course, when you only had 12 teams, it made sense that the CBA only allowed it for 44 games. But as you increase teams, you renegotiate that CBA because you're creating new jobs. There are more roles in the WNBA at that point. I also hope that they increase the roster size by 1 or 2 players as well. If you start getting into that area of doing things, increasing that number of games could make sense for the W. So let me know what you guys think on that as well down below. But that's my time. I miss you guys. Like I said, we'll be back kind of a full schedule once we look at the Olympic schedule and figure out when and where we can get some of those episodes in. We'll still be here. We're not going to completely go away over the Olympic break. And as any WNBA news or big Chicago Sky news drops, you can find us here as well. Make sure you guys are following us at Chicago Sky Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoSkyCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail, and I do plan on trying to do a voicemail episode here soon, so get all those voicemails, text in everything that you thought. I think we had 3 voicemails last time. Get any thoughts on the Chicago Sky. What do you want to see on this over the second half? Things like that in. The number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Sky related. That's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Sky. Love you guys. I see you guys the next time we go to Skytown, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.